Okay, so this is the Tosefta, Makkot, so supplement to the Mishnah. We're in Parak Gimel, so chapter 3 of Makkot. And again, this is the brightot that that's typically spoken of in the Gemara. So it says, 3 cities of refuge did Moses set aside in the Transjordan. And when they came to the land, they set aside 3 more. But even so, neither these nor those afforded protection until they had conquered and divided up the land. Once they had conquered and divided up the land, and so had become liable to tithes into the laws of the 7th year, both these and those began to afford protection to the manslayer. 3 cities did Joshua set aside in the land of Canaan, and they corresponded to the 3 in Transjordan, like 2 rows, like 2 rows of vines in a vineyard. So it's like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, if you look on a map. So Hebron in Judah corresponds to Botzer in the wilderness. Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim correspond to Ramoth in Gilead. Kadesh in Galilee corresponded to Golan in Bashan. And even though he had set aside Shechem in the mountains of Ephraim, it did not afford protection. He set aside Kiryat Yearim in its stead until they had conquered Shechem. And even though they had set aside Kadesh in Galilee, it did not afford protection. So they set aside Gamla in its stead until they had conquered Shechem. And you will divide, Deuteronomy 19 verse 3, they be divided into 3 parts. A part from Hebron and south in the status of Hebron, from Hebron to Shechem in the status of Shechem, and up to Kadesh. If one of them fell down, they build it up in the same location. And how do we know that they may build it up even in some other location? Scripture says 6 cities of refuge, Numbers 25:13. They are to be in that same tribe's land. And how do we know that one may build them up in the land of another tribe? Scripture says they will be. That they should be lined up and should afford protection just as do the first ones. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, they write signs saying, refuge, refuge, at the crossroads, so that the manslayer may see and go into exile to the cities of refuge. And they hand over to him 2 disciples of sages, lest the avenger of the blood should kill him en route. And they will speak to the avenger of the blood, saying, do not treat this man like a shedder of blood, because the incident came to his hand by accident. Rabbi Meir says, also the manslayer may speak to the avenger of blood, as it is said. This is the word of the manslayer, Deuteronomy 19 verse 4. They said to him, many carry out his mission. Rabbi Shuman says, on the occasion of the death of the priest who is anointed for war, they do not bring back the manslayer. Even if one of those listed at Makkot 2:7, I'm not sure. Okay, Mishnah Makkot 2:7, A through D, who never are able to leave the cities of refuge, should be a Nazirite. He never leaves that place. But he cuts off all his hair and sends it as an offering to be placed under the pot in which the peace offering is boiled. Numbers 6:18. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, why does Scripture say, whither he has fled? Numbers 35:25. There will be his dwelling, there will be his death, there will be his burial. And they build him a house, and he lives in it, as it is said, and he will dwell there. Numbers 35:26. And not within its Sabbath limit, but in the city itself. If the avenger of the blood found him within the Sabbath limit of the town and killed him, lo, he is equivalent to anyone else, and is liable for hitting him or for cursing him. And he is liable for damages he may do to him, whether it is a man or a woman. And even if he kills him deliberately, he is put to death. If he does so inadvertently, he himself goes into exile to the cities of refuge. Rabbi Yoshi says, under no circumstances is the manslayer put to death unless he stands before the judges. As it is said, that the manslayer may not die until he stands before the congregation for judgment. Numbers 35:12. Rabbi Akiva says, if a court saw him slay someone, lo, this one does not go into exile. If a high court saw him slay someone, well, this one does not go into exile, and they do not put him to death forthwith. But they call all their judges into session and give testimony in their presence. As it is said, that the manslayer may not die until he stands before the congregation for judgment. Numbers 35:12. Rabbi Elazar says, concerning a manslayer who went forth outside of the Sabbath limit or outside the border of the city in which he has taken refuge, does Scripture speak, as it is said. Numbers 35:26 and 27, it says, but if the manslayer should at any time go beyond the bounds of his city of refuge to which he fled, and the avenger of blood finds him outside the bounds of his city of refuge, and the avenger of blood slays the manslayer, he shall not be guilty of blood like other people. A manslayer who went into exile into a city of refuge and the townsfolk wanted to honor him must say to them, I am a manslayer. But he need not repeat the same matter, as it is said, this is the word of the manslayer, Deuteronomy 19, verse 4. You have only the first report, which is the manslayer must give, but no more than that. He who commits manslayer in that very town goes into exile from one neighborhood to another. And a Levite goes into exile from one town to another. And Rabbi says, I say that the partition of the town is equivalent to the town. As to these 3 cities, they do not make them into large cities nor into small towns, but mid-sized cities. They build them only in a place in which there is adequate water. If they do not have adequate water, they bring water to them. And they build them only in a populated area. If the population went down, they bring others and settle them in their place. If their residents went down in numbers, they add to them priests, Levites, and Israelites. They do not make them into olive presses or potteries, the words of Rabbi Nehemiah. And sages permit, and they do not weave ropes in them, and they do not make glass utensils in them, so as not to provide many occasions for the avenger of the blood to go there. 3 cities of refuge did Moses set aside in the Trans-Jordan, and when they came into the land, they set aside 3 more. And in the time to come, they will set aside 3 more in each case. Thus, there are 6, and yet 3 more. Lo, 9 for each of the 3, thus 12. Abba Shul says, 3 for the 3, lo, 6, and another 3, lo, 9 for the 3, thus 12 for the 3, thus 15. He who eats of the Passover offering in olive's bulk of living flesh. Oh, I'm sorry, that's 4, so I'll cut this video here.